Namaste. We are with Gautam ji once again, and we are doing the series Traits of the Ego, which many devotees had requested. So, Gautam, thank you so much for your time as always.
Thank you, Nick, for having me here.
So, with the podcast that we had done a few episodes on this topic, which I think is quite important because all through the Satcharit, there are certain things that Baba pointedly spoke or gave us little pointers which were directed to the ego. For example, things where people would criticize somebody else which he never approved of, or people being reactive or impatient, or things like right in the beginning of the Charitra where Hemarpant, they were argumentative. These were pointed things that Baba would hold devotees up for. And since many devotees really were impacted by the podcast that we did during I think it was the second wave of the pandemic, then they requested that if we can do this as a video series. So I thought today if we can do the first episode with, the false sense of self or the ego I,
right,
that we can first discuss, then we can do subsequent small episodes on different aspects that devotees can become more self-aware about, and hopefully it helps them in their spiritual journey.
Yes, that's beautiful, and I'm so glad that they are delving deeper into this subject, because this directly impacts daily living. And these traits of the ego, these are not like we are finding faults. We are showing how the ego operates. What does it derive its sense of self from, which is false? You see, so in awareness, you use the right word actually. All we are doing is looking at the way the ego operates in awareness. We are not trying to say this is right, this is wrong, because after all, the ego was not created by us. It was created by God. Ego is identification with name and form as a separate entity. This is me. This is me and my story. So, how this ego operates, what are its habits, what are its patterns, different patterns and habits for different people based on their conditioning. So we can just explore. So everyone can see it, this exploration, in light of their life, their issues, their projections, and so on.
So could we begin with the concept of that false sense of self? Like as you had explained in one of your talks that, a newborn child doesn't have that sense of me. It doesn't refer to itself as I.
Right.
Sometimes children even refer to themselves as, like for example, this one wants to talk in third person.
Correct.
But later then, the parents condition it where they begin to realize that, when I say this I or their own name, like this one is hungry, then that sense of self starts developing.
Yes, like it becomes me as separate from you. You see, that is what happens. Me, my conditioning, the way my parents treated me, the school I went to, the college I went to, the religion I'm born into, my economic status, this is me. So all this has got accumulated. This is who I am. I think this is really me. And I start operating from that center as separate from the other person. That is what happens with this when this ego gets encrusted with conditioning. We become very rigid. Our views. We don't realize that our view is based on our conditioning. Someone else may have a different conditioning and their view may be different because of that. But we feel our view is the right view.
This reminds me in chapter 1, Baba specifically said this, that it is not for us to be, fixed with our own views and put someone else's down and get mired into that.
There you go.
Baba was in the beginning of the Charitra, the fundamental.
That's it. So what happens when we look at the ego and the way it operates? a transformation takes place. We are no longer fixed and rigid about things. We are no longer fixed and rigid about people or even events in our lives. That is what happens.
So, as an exercise, just as I said before we go into the traits of the ego, for someone to develop that self-awareness or metacognition of this false sense, like, when they can begin to witness, maybe if someone is hurt or someone puts them down or says something where, there's a bit of like a reaction inside, just to begin to witness, so there's a bit of space. Like as I said earlier, like with a child, when the child is small, they even refer to themselves as third person.
Right.
Later it becomes me and, the whimpering and throwing tantrums, so to speak, which unfortunately carries on later in life in maybe hopefully a little filtered way, but the operating principle is the same. So I felt if you could give certain pointers that, just to become aware of this false sense of I.
You see, there are various ways we can look at it. Let's take some very, very basic daily living instances. I'll tell you one. I was with two friends. There was some movie, which I forget which movie. So one friend was telling us, have you seen this new movie? And the other friend had no interest really in that subject the movie was about. So this friend said, oh my God, you haven't seen it? How could you not see it? You're missing out on it. He went on and on feeling like, oh, I have seen this movie, you haven't, and therefore you don't really know what's a good movie about, right? Now this friend who was at the receiving end started shrinking. I could actually, energetically of course, like as if he was being talked down to. Now, these kind of situations, you see, where if there are people expressing their points of view, you don't thrust it down someone's throat. This we have to see in our own lives. Do we do this? Are we also doing this? Are we putting people down if they don't have the same point of view as we have? Because that means we are operating from a false sense of self. We have identified with a movie, let's say, which we think is great, someone else may not. But are we open to that point of view? So what would happen in an awakened person? Awakened person will see the movie, may really love it, may share his viewpoint that, oh, I saw this movie, it was great. But if someone else says, I too saw it, but I didn't get so impacted by it, the awakened person would say, fair enough. The awakened person is not going to operate from this sense of authority that I know best, and how dare you say that means you don't appreciate good movies, you don't know what it is about. That is what the ego operating from the false center does. Something as simple as this, if we look at our own lives, are we really open to the person who is in front of us, expressing their point of view, their thoughts, their feelings? You see, these are giveaways, Nick. This is how we can catch ourselves. Or look at something entirely different. What are we identified with which we are projecting onto others? Now let's take social media, which is today a very big thing, right? Now, am I always posing in these fancy nightclubs, restaurants? If I'm traveling to very exotic locations and I'm saying, oh, I'm at Istanbul airport, I'm at Paris airport. See, the feeling may be great, but what is happening? Am I trying to project? Look at me. This is who I am. Because what is happening? I am deriving my sense of self from the fact that I'm at Paris airport. And so people should see that and say, wow, fantastic, yeah, amazing, you're at Paris. And it makes me feel good. So something which is external, something which I feel enhances my sense of self, I'm in Paris, wow. It becomes like an exalted feeling. I've added on to myself. What was pure being, pure living, now is uplifted because I feel an exalted sense of self if I'm seen to be in Paris. So now I depend on being seen in Paris for who I am. This is how the ego operates. An awakened person, if he wanted to share with his friends that he was enjoying his visit to Kanpur or Nagpur or wherever, would be equally comfortable posting pictures of his trip to Kanpur or to Paris. That is the point. There's no differentiation that way, because the sense of self is not derived from this gloated, enhanced image of look at me. So, like I began by saying, we are not putting the ego down. We are trying to say, just look where you derive your sense of self from. It is always that we are adding things to us. You see, this pure being that we are, precisely the way God made us, shaped us, is now seeking something outside for validation, for approval. You know, I want other people's approval. So, will they approve of me if they see that I'm wearing a fancy brand, fancy shoes? You see, because then this is who I am. I am this brand of bag. These all become extensions of the ego. That is what happens. So it's quite fascinating if the spiritual seeker, anyone listening to this video or drawn onto any spiritual path, the beauty is it opens up and exposes the traits of the ego.
And if an aspirant even begins to notice this with awareness in their day-to-day living, it need not only be like, say, posting photos, but it could be even if they derive their sense from a relationship or some pain or certain patterns.
Sure.
But just to have that awareness where even merely doing this inquiry, that does this enhance my sense of self in some way, like this action. And if they see that, then that itself, I think, is the first step for change, like where you become aware of it.
Very well said. Like, for example, I could be so identified with my past. Now, supposing I had a past where I struggled a lot, where I didn't have money, I had to work very hard for my money. And I find myself in conversation every time bringing up this past. Oh, you know, when I was young, I didn't have enough money to have a meal in a fancy restaurant. Oh, you know, when I was young, means I have got invested in the story. The past is dead and gone. That is my script today. If I keep replaying the past, that means I derive my sense of who I am from my past. That is gone. We are here and now in front of each other. So this is a great pointer. How much are you in the dead past or in an imaginary future? That means you're invested either there or there, and you are not available. You are not present to what the moment has to offer, because your story has been invested in the pages which is already gone or may come. We don't know if they come. That is actually a classic trait of the ego, the avoidance of the present. So if we find that we are avoiding the present, unconsciously of course, by always glorifying the past or putting down the past, or saying things which are very much in the future which may or may not happen, then we know that again we are operating from this false dimension, so to speak.
So Gautam, just before we close this episode, it reminded me what you shared about a pointer Nisargadatta Maharaj would give devotees, where you use this language of even referring to oneself in the third person as an exercise, just to create that space where, like, you don't say this is happening to me, it is happening.
Yes.
I mean, even if it is done intentionally for a week or so, then you at least begin to become aware in one day how much of your attention is on the me, the I, and it's a very interesting exercise to try for some time, where you also begin to differentiate. Like when you say I am eating or I am hungry, there is hunger, but you are witnessing it. It just creates that sort of separation.
Like he says that the internal dialogue should switch from, instead of I see something, to something is seen. I hear something to something is heard. So what happens? It brings a sense of neutrality and objectivity to what is seen and what is heard. Otherwise, we are in this mode, oh, you are telling me this. How dare you tell me this? You see, we are so me-centric that we lose sight of the fact that the person may be saying something which means something entirely different, but we take it personally. He or she is telling this to me. So what Maharaj is suggesting here is that we lose this me focus, because you see, the me keeps adding on. I see something, hear something, touch something, smell something, taste something, and then I like this, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like this. So this quality of witnessing brings about that gap where we will find over time that we are not so invested like we were earlier, which was building us up, this false sense of self. We are more neutral, we are less reactive, we are more equanimous with what is seen and what is heard. So this is actually an exploration which can go across many videos, but I'm glad that it's a start, and I do hope the subscribers to your channel explore this in their own lives. It's actually quite a gift. They will really find things opening up.
Because even as we were talking over tea, that the ones that are sincere now, following these pointers, it does show that they've gone through a series of good and bad experiences. But then this is what, takes you into the work that takes you to the peace. Miracles and all are signs of encouragement, but even Baba ultimately, as he says in chapter 3, when you go past all these waverings of the mind and going outside, then it's only when you have that stillness that it opens the door. It's the beginning, but to go where Baba wants to take you.
Yes, and you see, what happens is that the thinking mind of the ego, which is swinging like a wild pendulum, swinging between points of pleasure and pain, when that swinging starts reducing, you don't get swayed by pleasures as much as you used to. You don't get swayed by pains. By pain, I mean psychological pain, as much as you used to. So the pendulum naturally, when it slows down, comes to the still point, which is in the middle, not at one polaric end, not at the other polaric end. It's in the middle. And that is where peace is to be found.
So wonderful, Gautam. I hope to continue this series of episodes with you.
I would love to. Thank you, Nick.
And in the next episodes, I would like to go into, the different traits of the ego and those characteristics, so, devotees can become more aware.
Thank you.